The Joshua Wolfram Storm History. Let's see what storms I've experienced throughout my life, from a kid all the way to an adult, from all of the memorable storms throughout my life. Now, I have to say, being Canadian, our weather can be pretty harsh, especially in winter. So let's dig down and document the storms that went down within my life. Starting off with the first major storm of my life, the 2013 Toronto ice storm, one of the scariest storms I've ever experienced as a kid, with power line transformers blowing up everywhere when I was in bed with my mom at that time. We lost power, and it was starting to get cold. It was a very dark Christmas Eve that day. This ice storm has also stayed in my memory ever since. I was shivering my ass off in bed, listening to the crackling of the trees and the blow-ups of the transformers outside. It was one of the scariest moments of my life, terrifying than I ever imagined. Now, after a couple of years, 2014 and 2015, seems to be very calm when it comes to storms. It wasn't really major storms in that year either, except I heard one of the loudest thunderstorms in that year. So not much really happened in those 2 years, until we approached 2016, which we began to see some more severe storms coming through in 2016. Since I didn't start YouTube then, there were some pretty good storms that went through the neighborhood in 2016, and that's just when we had countless severe thunderstorm warnings, and even some tornado warnings as well. Now, 2017 is the year of thunderstorms of my life. Now, this year is my peak year, and there were a lot of thunderstorms in that year, severe thunderstorms that even produced tornadoes that actually touched down next to the Capitol building of Ottawa. There were also tornado warnings all across southern Ontario. In that year and within fall 2017, we had a tornado watch and warning situations again. It was a year that was one of my favorites in terms of weather. And oh my God, 2018 rolls around. 2018, the year of the windstorms. Quite literally. So starting off on April 4th, 2018, we had the first major windstorm of my life, which basically knocked down a crane and spinning cranes and knocking down trees within the GTA. I didn't record a video on that day, but news articles showed the destruction the storm caused. The winds reached in my area 111 kilometers per hour on that day. And we were at school on that day as well, and we went out to recess. And let me tell you something, everyone was getting blown away. I is the only one that is trying to outstand the wind. And turns out, I successfully did throughout the 40 minutes of recess. The winds were around 85 km/h for 40 minutes straight outside. It was kind of fun at the same time, but it was kind of dangerous at the same time. Surprised the school let us out. In storms like this, it's crazy. Fast forward a couple of weeks into April. April 15th, we got an ice storm and a windstorm all together, which basically means I never seen this before. The winds were gusting. The freezing rain is accumulating, which took down some branches. In my backyard as well, in some places around the GTA, the winds were exceeding 80 kilometers per hour. And that storm was one of the weirdest I've experienced. Definitely wasn't scared of this one. Now, this windstorm was no joking matter. This windstorm almost killed me. The May 4th, 2018 windstorm, one of the most severe windstorms I've experienced so far. This storm quite literally blew off roofs, took down numerous trees, and had gusts up to 126 kilometers per hour, which equivalent to that was winds as high as Hurricane Hazel. When it struck Toronto back within 1954, this storm caused all sorts of damages. In this storm, nearly killed me. I was almost hit by a tree branch next to my house. Literally 2 branches came down and almost hit me. I was walking towards the fence until a branch came crashing down, literally 5 man-hours away from me. And then after a couple of seconds, another bigger branch came flying off the tree across the property and hit the driveway. If I was standing there on that driveway, I wouldn't be alive. Thank God I dodged it. This storm was nuts, $380 million in damages, and 3 people died within this windstorm. It was one of the costliest windstorms in such a long time in that year. Within June, it was also very windy in that month as well, which also had enough power to knock down basketball hoops and garbage cans. And then we had numerous severe thunderstorms that were well in that year, as well as intense heat waves. It slowly calmed down, But then we had an intense microburst on September 22nd, and a tornado touched down in Ottawa. It was literally an EF3. It was bonkers. 2019 rolls around and we get slammed by a winter storm, bringing 20 centimeters of snow, which was normal, but a couple months later, we were impacted by another major windstorm for 2 days straight, February 24th and February 25th. The winds were estimated to be around 120 winds ever since May 2018. But 2019 was also a very calm year when it comes into the summer. Heavy rain that knocked over a tree, with a couple of thunderstorms happening within that summer. But fall 2019 rolls around. This is when the Halloween windstorm came. Yeah, again, another windstorm, which estimated wind gust up to 102 kilometers per hour. That storm finally knocked over trees in my neighborhood, but it wasn't the most severe. And so on, we entered 2020, COVID-19 year. And this year brought some pretty intense storms. In February, we had pretty intense winds up to 100 kilometers per hour and got a random tornadic storm that happened within the night. An amazing lightning show that I have never seen before on June 2nd, 2020, 3 days before my birthday. The July 19th, 2020 severe thunderstorm event, literally at my 500 subscriber special, and some other storms within the fall. But then November 15th rolls around, which was another catastrophic windstorm that in St. Catharines, Ontario, had winds estimated to be over 140 kilometers per hour. That right there is well over Category 1 hurricane strength. I also caught the storm within my neighborhood, whipping the trees around. That storm was intense. It also ripped roofs off skyscrapers, and oh my God, it was just crazy. Now 2021 rolls around, and now there isn't really much activity that year compared to the previous. But until July 15th, a F2 tornado touchdown in Barrie. July 20th, we got a microburst. That brought down a dead tree, damaged the fence, which took a couple of days for us to fix. And also on December 15th, 2021, we had another windstorm with lightning in it. Haha. And so on. We entered 2022, and we got one of the worst winter storms I've experienced, which happened on January 20th. This is the year that we experienced a lifetime event, the May 21st derecho. That storm was absolutely catastrophic. It brought a F2 tornado in a town in Uxbridge, Ontario. It quite literally wiped out the freaking neighborhood. And it was the closest major tornado in my life. And Uxbridge is not very far. That was the closest tornado. Also within that day, it was also my sister's birthday. And we had that storm gone through. I told my sister that this storm was going to be intense, and she didn't listen, and witnessed something that she will never forget. Transformers blowing up within the neighborhood, and it was very intense. Now fast forward into December 2022, and we got a weather bomb. This brought wind gust up to some places, 120 kilometers per hour in some areas. But in our area, it was just 80 kilometers per hour, and here is me in the video in the eye of the storm. Before things started to get intense again, almost like a winter hurricane. And now we enter 2023. And this year brought all kinds of winter weather, snow squall, and windy and rainy conditions. But then it was on March 3rd that we experienced a living blizzard, one of the most intense storms, literally gunking up the window with ice, with blizzard-like conditions in my face with thunder snow, lightning, thundering, windy, snowy, you name it, it was crazy. We also got a random hailstorm within September 18th, 2023, and that came out of nowhere. There was also another fucking tornado again, in Ottawa. And now we enter 2024, and 10 days within the new year, we were impacted by a very short-living snowstorm. The winds were pretty intense though, but it hardly even caused any noticeable problems. On April 1st, 2024, we had a little bit of a windstorm that happened, but it also shredded a pine tree. A couple days later, it had to be cut down. And so that the windstorm literally removed one of my favorite trees in my life, which upset me. And so the summer rolls in. And we got a severe thunderstorm that produced a random tornado in Kitchener, Ontario on August 17th, 2024, which I also record the storm in my neighborhood, which was honestly one of the weakest among severe thunderstorms I've experienced. And then we went storm chasing with Chewbacca Mask Man. That was hilarious. And so we made it to 2025, the current year, which brought a brutal winter, with literally the largest snowstorm I've experienced in my life, with snow exceeding the centimeters from 2022, the April 29th, 2025 windstorm and thunderstorm that happened, which exceeded gusts up to 100 kilometers per hour. My sister experienced in 2025 another storm on her birthday, again another windstorm, and a funnel cloud nearly touching the ground a couple of months ago. The weather is just getting worse, guys, and experienced one of the most extreme heat waves in Ontario, and that was hot as hell. Ugh! Now the weather is psychologically and mentally confusing me, as on November 3rd, 2025, there was a random windstorm that happened so randomly, followed by hail, which was actually ping-pong-sized in some places. And then we got a severe thunderstorm embedded, and it was terrifying because it wasn't forecasted. No warnings, and this is when I talked in my community post about it. This was literally the most confusing weather event that happened literally a couple days ago. Now, the weather history I've gone through was very intense, and honestly, it's going to get way worse when I grow. And eventually, we will see life-changing altercations with this type of scenario we live in. Also, thank you so much for watching.